Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 148. Big Box Steve on the mic, and apparently we got the Gator, got the Big Smooth, and Fresh Wes. So obviously, we're going to recap March Madness tonight. We're going to go NFL updates, talk about the NFL draft, and then of course we got to do the salute to Val Kilmer. Talked about that last week, but this is an episode where we're going to go and rank some movies and get a little deeper there. So, but first. I mean, this is your time to shine, Derek. We both have Florida to win the tournament. Obviously, you're a bigger Florida fan than I am. But why don't you break down that championship game for us?
Well, it's kind of like how we talked about it. And it's true. Like Houston has a great defense, but they go in lulls. And Florida has a pretty good defense. And that's what happened. They made it, their defense came to play in second half, the second part, like 10 minutes left in the game, and Houston couldn't do anything at the end. And everyone's like, oh, you got to get a shot up there. And I'm like, well, there was pretty good defense on him.
With stupid offense too.
Yeah, well, that's the way they play though, and that's like they Houston is great defense, but that's like they spend all their time on defense. Their offense is just horrendous. And I think with Florida, they made timely plays. You had everyone contributing. It wasn't just the Clayton show. You had Richard in the first half, keeping him in the game. The second half, you had Martin hit a shot, hit a three. Then Clayton hit a three, and then you had Aberdeen off the bench making plays. And then the bigs, they held the bigs of Cincinnati in check, the defensively, and that's to me is the what the thing with the tournament is. If the flashy part is Walter Clayton Jr., but the bigs made it so their defense could play well because they played one-on-one with the other team's bigs. They didn't have to double team at all. And so that's for me, I thought was the reason they won. It's their defense. Their defense came and had a little bit more offense than Houston.
Yeah, I think the most important part is that Florida's defense played really well. They don't get enough respect as a defensive team, and they showed it in that second half there. Walter Clayton obviously barely scored anything in the first half. So all of
Nothing.
his points really came in the second half. You're right in the case that Richard kept him in the game. Houston kind of blew it though. I mean, they really had a chance to win that game. When you think about where they were at, and Florida's been down multiple times at this tournament by double digits.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting is they keep coming back.
Well, did I send you that? Florida is the only national champion over the last 20 years to overcome a deficit of 9+ points in the Elite Eight, the Final Four in the championship
In
game.
the championship. Yeah, that's crazy. So give us your evaluation of the final game.
Houston's offense is terrible, pretty much. Like, but I knew about 6 minutes left. There was just too much time left in the game. It's almost like they're just trying to run out. They're like, okay, we have a little bit of a cushion, and you just saw it just kind of deplete. It's like Florida took that lead, and I think it was 45-34 at somewhere around 9 minutes left in the game, and they just kind of chipped away at it. Got it within three. And then Walter Clayton, he goes to the free throw line, gets his first 2 points. But Houston's defense was phenomenal in the first half. Just kind of like not letting Clayton get the ball. Um, but second half, you know, first half was very sloppy. Second half, a lot more fouls called. Um, and Florida's defense, they had that block on the 3-point shot that really changed the the tempo of the game. They went down and scored. And they just got a lot of momentum. They just carried it. And Houston, it's just they just didn't have enough offense at the end. And the last play, um, you don't get a shot off, but it was great defense because they knew he was going to shoot the ball. And what I don't understand is how you don't have someone on the wing because there's no way he could pass it back. He had to shoot it. He didn't have a choice. He couldn't get it inside, so he shot it and didn't get the shot off, and so it wasn't a very good play call at the end. The play calling in the last 5 minutes for Houston wasn't very good at all. They kind of blew the game, but Florida deserves it just because of the fact that they did what Houston did all year. They played great defense when it mattered. So, but it was a sloppy game.
That the play calling for me, when you look at the last 10 minutes of the game, mostly into the last 5 minutes of the game, it's like when teams go into that prevent defense, right?
Yeah.
You're not aggressive, you're not really trying to win the game, you're trying to play not to lose. And how many times can you look back through history and watch teams that played not to lose end up losing the game,
Yeah, it's like it almost reminded me of the Blazers and the Lakers, in
Right.
2000. It's like, oh, we got this 15-point lead. It's like you're just, there's too much time on the clock. And I just watched the clock, 6 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm like, you guys got to do something. They have too much talent. Even though they didn't have a very good game shooting, they're going to get theirs. They're going to find a way to put up points. You have to do something offensively, and they just didn't do it. I mean, Cryer is the only one that was in double digits in that game.
Yeah.
But he didn't shoot the ball that great from downtown. He's like 4 for 12, 4 for 11. And
But you got to remember, Uzan and Sharp didn't have particularly great games at all, but the difference is they've had good games throughout the tournament. But the defense that Florida was able to play on those two individually, because they play a lot of one-on-one, right? They're a lot of isolation ball with Uzan and Sharp.
yeah,
And they didn't particularly do well in those one-on-one situations. They turned the ball over, or they ended up, using a lot of the shot clock and then putting Houston in a tough position to take a late shot in the shot clock and a bad shot.
yeah,
So
both.
that's what I think Florida did really well. And those are kind of the unsung things of one. Walter Clayton played really good defense. Richard always plays really good defense, and so you had their guards, I think, really were as important as the bigs in this situation defensively. So that was pretty good. It was a good game. I think Houston came out and played really great. Looked like they were going to win the game.
Yet they were still only up by 3 at halftime.
Yeah.
And like Florida played horrible in the first half and we're only up by 3. So
Yeah,
for me,
well,
it's like, okay, well, what I've seen, this is going the way it should be because now it's going to be Florida's time in the second half.
even though Houston had a chance in the second half, they stretched it out a little bit.
Oh, they were up by 11.
Right.
They're
And
up
I
45
think
to 3.
what turned the game around is at halftime, they were like, okay, we're going to be physical like Houston. And then they came out and were physical like Houston. And then all of a sudden the refs are like, well, we can't have this physical game. Then they started calling tons of fouls on both teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Houston kind of got into foul trouble.
Early too.
It didn't matter. The first half there was only 2 fouls called. The second half there was 23, and people are complaining about the inconsistency.
It's pretty inconsistent.
You're going to let them play in the first half, and the second half you're just going to call everything. And
yeah.
but it's also the nature of the game. Both teams played really hard. It's almost like they played too hard because it's just like they didn't shoot particularly well from the outside. They both shot about 25% from 3-point range. I mean, Walter Clayton had 11 points. I mean, averaging what, 30, 32? during the tournament. Um, but
Well, yeah,
that just shows you like it. I liked it because I'm kind of tired of, especially watching NBA, especially what I'm watching right now. Is like these guys don't play defense. They just run up and down the court. They shoot threes. You know, you see games in the 140s, and they're like, "Oh, it's such a great game." It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
Like I like the intensity. It was an old school like 90s basketball game.
yeah.
You know, it was sloppy. I don't care. There's great plays and moments, and that's what happens a lot back in the old school days of football and basketball. It's like, everyone wants to look at the scoreboard. It's like, no, some of the best games ever in football were 21-17. You know, if you actually know the game and know what defense is, and this was great defense. It was sloppy at times, but that was just from aggression. They're both teams were like, there was a lot of pressure
you
applied by
saw
both.
that early in the game. They
Yeah.
definitely looked like they had a lot of nerves
Yeah.
happening at the first 10 minutes.
Well, then they interviewed Kelvin Sampson, and he even said that. He's like, "Oh yeah, the nerves is getting them, getting both teams
Yeah.
right now." But like Wes was saying, it irritated me so much. So I go on the X, and everyone's like, "How horrible the game this was," and I'm like, "No, this is basketball. It doesn't have to be 140 to 130. This is actually playing defense." You saw like every possession mattered,
Yeah, it did.
and that's like they played that way.
It really did for Houston. Actually, for Florida. I mean, the margin of error was so small for Florida to come back.
Well, yeah. Once you got into that late, 6, 7 minutes of the game, it really narrowed the window.
And that Walter Clayton hit one 3-pointer, and that
Yeah.
was the tie of the game at 60. And when that happened, I was like, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wrap.
When he drove things down the left side and he had the and one, that was a big for me. That was a momentum for him personally, and got his head back in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was on Hawk's block, and then he went down and got the and one, and they just hit a three. So they won 6 points within like that.
Yeah.
That turned the game around completely. And then yes, the Clayton, that was what was cool, was that was out of a timeout, so they set up a perfect double screen.
Yeah.
And that's what you had to do, is like finally get him open. And it's like he just needed like a little bit of space.
That was the problem I had with Houston at the end of the game. I don't know if you noticed this, but there wasn't a sense of urgency in their play calling and in their player that they were running. It almost looked like one of those things where you're like, oh, they're just gonna run out the clock to the last minute and chuck up a three.
Or chuck
Well,
up
that was
something. Yeah.
uh, Florida's defense kept pushing them. They were always outside the 3-point line, and that's like they lived out there. Houston did, and they couldn't get
Yeah.
it inside.
Well, they did that like kind of slow, go to the right. Maybe we're going to do a pick and roll. Then we're going to do a pick and a roll. And now you're already down to like 9 seconds before you're even like in the offense. And so it just looked like there was like no sense of urgency. Like they didn't really know who wanted to take that last shot, which is kind of been the problem with that Houston team, right?
Well,
Because sometimes it's Sharp, sometimes Suzon, sometimes Crier. Like you don't know who is that guy.
Crier should have been the guy, and Crier is the only one that was actually. I mean, only two other players hit one 3-pointer. He hit four, but I mean, he's
He almost shot 11 of them.
6 for 18. Yeah, he shot like he didn't shoot very well, but no one else was shooting. I mean, Sharp was 1 for 7, and it's like they didn't want to shoot, so Florida knew. It's like, okay, we're just neutralize Crier, and then we'll take away their bigs, and who else is going to beat us? You know.
Right. And when you're up three, you're guarding the 3-point line,
But they weren't up. They were only up 2.
Oh yeah, I guess you can't give up the three.
And so that was the thing, is Houston should have been trying to
Yeah, they should have just went to the basket.
yeah.
Yeah, you try to get to the foul line.
Yeah, you try to draw a foul.
And you
100%.
when all else fails and you can't hit a shot, you get right to the basket, and of course it's gonna be contested with Florida, but you try to draw that foul, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
why aren't you going to the basket at that point?
But also because the defense was that good. Florida was so active defensively, they couldn't get around them. I mean,
yeah, Martin, Richard, and Clayton, they locked it down. And that's the thing is everyone's like, oh, why was Sharp shooting from almost, a little, Damian Lillard range, right? Like, dude, you can't get a closer shot in?
no.
No, I mean, yeah, you got to look at that and be like, what are you doing at this point? Like, you're telling me that there's not a play that you have for this situation?
Well, the problem was they were out of timeouts. And so they couldn't talk to Samson and they didn't have they should have this should be something where you practice it every day, like the whole 2 minute
Right.
drill.
Oh, well, at the
But
end of the game, at the end of practice, this is the play you practice.
Yeah.
yeah.
There was no second option. They knew, and this is for, and I'm wondering whether the coach was pointing out like, hey, he's gonna get the ball because when he jumped at him, it's like they knew, okay, he's gonna get the ball. There should have been a second option on the wing because there's no one there. At least they would have got a shot off. They knew exactly like, oh, he's gonna get the ball, just run at him, and
Yeah.
he just freaked out.
Well, and it's late in the shot clock at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
So what else is he going to do?
no,
So, I mean, either way, great comeback by Florida. Derek, I'm sure you're happy for the win, but I think before the tournament, you picking them because, you like them, but also you thought they were going to win. I thought Florida had the best chance of winning this. They looked like they wouldn't at times, but again, they pulled it out. And a lot of that had to do with their defense, their hustle, and their ability to play as a team. So, congratulations, Florida. And, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, well, Wes had Houston.
I know. What's that,
At the
Houston?
beginning of March Madness, we
Yeah,
both looked forward to Wes had Houston. So,
oh, I had Houston beating Florida at the
right.
beginning.
And we had Florida beating Houston.
well, I had
Well, yeah,
a
we
different one, but yeah,
we
that's out a long time ago.
I would have won the pool if Houston would have won at the one.
And that's why you don't bet against Florida, Wes. Gosh.
But I mean,
Fundamentals.
so just wrap up March Madness here for a second. And I want to circle back to something we talked about a couple times throughout the tournament. One specifically when there weren't any Cinderellas left, right? And then also like people just saying this isn't as good of a March Madness as we've seen. Like I have to differ with that opinion. That's my opinion. So I kind of want to see where you guys sit because I think this is a great tournament.
Well, yeah, you like Cinderellas to win maybe one or two games, but you want the best teams playing in the Elite Eight Final Four and National Championship game. How many times have we had it where the Cinderella team makes it far and then gets blown out by 30?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Final Four was definitely those games were elite. Um, and at the beginning, of course, everyone's disappointed because you didn't have that. You had a couple teams. You had the Clemson and
McNeese.
okay, you had that. That was a blowout. That was even like, but you start getting the Sweet 16. There were good games. I mean, the Maryland game was excellent. The Texas Tech, all the Florida games were good. Uh, Overall, yeah, a decent tournament. I didn't say it's one of the best, but the Final Four games were pretty epic. I
Yeah.
mean Duke, I mean Houston Duke, and then just the Florida and Auburn game. Florida Auburn game was an excellent game.
Yeah.
And that
With-
and it was different than the national champ. It was a completely different game. It's like, okay, we have more firepower than Auburn. We're gonna go at them, and we're going to get up and down the floor, and we're going to shoot the lights out and play good. This one was just a complete defense. It's almost like Houston. They're probably one of the only teams in college basketball that really relies on their energy on defense. It's like they transition that into getting the other team off balance defensively, and they take advantage of that and they beat them. Florida did that in the last 8 minutes. They said, you know what, we're going to do the same thing Houston did. We're going to put all our concentration on defense, and we'll get baskets.
They did.
That block on the 3-point line, that started everything. That was an amazing block.
Yeah.
That play was like, you're just like, what? How did that just happen? You know?
Yeah, they hustled a lot more. They pushed the ball up court, you're right, a lot more against Auburn than they did against Houston. But you saw a little bit of that in the second half. Clayton got a little more aggressive in the second half, getting the ball fast up the court. But Auburn, they really ran them, especially in the second half. So, yeah, I mean, either way, thought it was a great tournament. I don't mind no Cinderella. I liked seeing the ones play because I thought they were the best teams, and so we got to see what I think were the best games, of the tournament late in the tournament.
And if I had to bet next year, it will be a little different. I bet you'll have. I mean, that happens. I remember it's not the year all the number ones in 2008. There are years where it's top heavy. It just happens. I don't think it's strictly due to NIL. It's just it was just top heavier.
Yeah, I mean that's so you got transfer portal and NIL, all these things that are going to affect, of course, college basketball.
One last thing. Florida is the only school in NCAA that has won 3 basketball championships and 3 football championships.
Wow. That's a good stat. I mean, they've been, I guess since like 2000, right? They've been pretty solid in both sports. So, congratulations. And like I said, sure, we know Derek's happy, but it's always good to be right. And so if you're looking for correct sports information, look at us because we're 50% of the time we're 100% right.
And I got the women's right. I picked UConn to win it all also. So
All right, so we'll wrap March Madness. There's a great season, and let's jump into here NFL update in a minute.